Folks, the next story this evening is going to involve this building right here. At the bottom of this building, there is a basement. Now, anybody here from the north? All right, up north, you guys got basements. We don't have any basements here in Charleston. If you guys can just come this way a little bit, or when you're going to take it, just don't stand on the road, thanks. Now, everybody knows where the basement from the north is, but from the folks in the south, just make sure we're all on the same page. A basement is extra square footage added to a house or a building below the first floor. And some of these basements up north are huge. They got carpeting in them, AC, heat, cable TV, and I found a good basement up there has a shower and a bathroom in it. But we don't have anything like that here in Charleston. There's a basement for about 100 miles inland. And even then, it's tough to find one. Well, there was one building in the late 1700s that was built with a basement in its original plans. And it was this one right here. Excuse me, early 1700s. This basement is pretty big. It runs the entire length and width of the building, and at its height down there, it's about 6 feet tall. Basically, knowing about that basement is a prelude to the story of pirates. In 1718, one of the world's most infamous pirates sailed into our harbor a half a block behind us and gave us trouble for about a week. Anybody want to take a guess who that was? Anybody else? Captain Jack Sparrow. No, for your fantasy, it wasn't Johnny Depp. It was Blackbeard. Blackbeard sailed in the harbor with 3 ships and 400 men, captured a city councilman, Samuel Ray, plus they captured Samuel's 4-year-old boy. Now, his list of demands was short when Blackbeard came to town. All he wanted was a chest of medicine. Kind of weird, medicine, pirates. But Charleston at the time was the largest seaport on the East Coast. All he wanted was medicine. Now, we didn't know it then, but we did archaeological studies of Blackbeard's crew years after they left, found out when they specifically got to Charleston in 1718, by that time they had contracted a terrible case of
scurvy.
Syphilis. Yeah. Of course, you know there's only one way to catch syphilis, so needless to say they were very busy on the high seas. Though we didn't want to deliver that chest of medicine to them because we had had it with pirates and all their dealings. We wanted to send a lesson to all the pirates in the world not to mess with this coastal city ever again. So the plan was to deliver 4 barrels of the Charleston's finest rum we could find to one of those 3 ships laying anchor out there in the harbor. They would drink it, get drunk, and then pass out. And then that would give opportunity to William Rhett, one of Charleston's famous pirate catchers, to go to the ship where they were drunk, seize it because it'd be easy, and then quietly load the cannons and aim them towards the other 2 ships that were out there in the harbor. And that's what they did. They repositioned the cannons during the night, and they waited till around 6 a.m. and they opened fire upon the other 2 ships. The plan worked. They were caught off guard, and the 2 ships were sank. Blackbeard escaped. He was killed in North Carolina. A majority of his men, though, did not escape. They're either still at the bottom of the Charleston harbor in Davy Jones's locker, or they ended up right down there in that space in that basement. Guys, the problem was in 1718, we didn't have a place to put over 100 prisoners at one time. So one of the city councilmen said, hey, let's just use the bottom of the customs house. Got all that room down there? So that's what they did. They called a couple local iron workers in, and they affixed chains to those walls down there. And then those men were clapped in irons, wrist and ankle. Narrowly on one of them, though, made it to their trial date. A majority of them died right down there in that basement. How? 40% of the peninsula of Charleston is landfill. The majority of the landfill is on this side of the street, all the way back. Same on the other side of the building, all the way back. And where the cars are there in one more row of houses would have been a beach in 1718. Now, there is a seawall a half a block behind us here, but it wasn't there at the time of the story. It was just this building, the beach, and the Atlantic Ocean. High tide is every 12 hours. The waters would approach from the rear. They would come up and up and up and up and end up about halfway in the middle of the building. Now, they wouldn't go out to the street unless there was a bad storm. But I pose this question to you. When the waters came up, what do you think they might have trickled down to? The basement. Water follows the lowest point it can find, no matter what or where it is. Just ask New Orleans. At the time of the story, that basement was it. And if you were down there, if you were chained to those walls, you most probably drowned to death. Drowned to death. Because you did not get removed. See, the British officers standing guard on top of this building, they knew when the tide waters were coming in. And they knew when those men down there were most susceptible. They didn't remove them because their whole stance on the situation was that if you happened to die while being incarcerated, well, that was the will that God had befallen you. And the king or the queen at the time had nothing to do with it. For that reason, I believe that space down there is one of the most haunted spaces in the city. You still have to go inside the haunted house and the haunted hotel. But down there, I believe that it's so haunted simply because of how those men died down there. They drowned without a chance, chained to those walls.